Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and it was another episode of Roswell, New Mexico, and this one, I thought it was a little slow at times, but it did have a lot of information in there, a lot of things that we've kind of been speculating about gets revealed, so there's a lot of that. So just to jump right into it, the episode begins with Max pulling Isabel out of the pod, and as soon as he gets her out of it, he's kind of like, do you remember me? Do you know who I am? That kind of thing. It kind of takes her a minute, but she eventually recognizes him. And then she turns to Liz and says, do you have the cure? And of course, Liz has got a syringe full of, what she thinks is going to be the cure. And she goes ahead and administers that to Isabel. Everything appears to be okay. Liz runs a few tests, says that everything looks normal, as normal as alien DNA can be. But then she does warn her that this is untested. We don't know what's going to happen. There's always side effects. After that, we pick up with Michael and Alex after last episode's ending, where they're kind of having a conversation. Michael's trying to tell him a little bit more about himself, his history, that sort of thing. And it's just a quick little scene with that. And after that, we see that Max is talking to Cameron. And she's surprisingly okay with the fact that he's an alien now. And she does say something to him about it. And I don't know if there's been some other conversations that's happened between the last time they interacted and now, but he doesn't really seem that shocked or, even trying to hide the fact that, she knows that he's an alien. There's kind of business as usual. They're talking about the murders that she's trying to figure out what happened with the handprints and the autopsy cover-ups and everything like that. Michael ends up showing Alex what's underneath his trailer, the little bunker that we saw in the previous episode, and he shows that he's been working on trying to rebuild the ship with parts that he's found all over the desert, and it kind of freaks Alex out a little bit. I don't really know why, but part of it does freak him out just talking about it. And he makes some throwaway line about, I'm going to get out of here before the storm hits. And I thought he said snowstorm, but at the same time I'm thinking, does that happen in Roswell? I mean, I'm not from there, obviously, but I do remember in the original series there was that one instance of snow, so there was that throwaway line. Later on we see that there actually is snow, so I don't know, I thought that was different. Isabel returns home to kind of talk things out with Noah, and at first it doesn't go very well. He kind of pulls a gun on her, but that's kind of glossed over pretty quickly, and eventually he's kind of okay with it. Everyone in this episode was surprisingly okay with the alien stuff. I found that a little odd. But I did kind of get cracked up at one point because he keeps talking about how she was in an egg. And I guess if you didn't know any better, I guess you would think she was in some kind of egg-like thing. But it still made me laugh because he kept saying, you're an egg person or something like that. And she's kind of like, well, we prefer the term pod or something. It just made me laugh. Kyle ends up going to his mother, and he's kind of confronting her about some stuff with his father and the fact about, did he really have cancer? Was it really that? What happened there? And they start kind of arguing. Eventually, his mother says something about the fact that his father had an affair with a girl half his age. And obviously she's referencing Rosa. Maybe she doesn't know it was actually Rosa, but she knows it was a girl of that age. And Kyle tells her, she was his daughter. He wasn't having an affair. And she's, again, like the theme of this episode of big revelations being made and everyone being surprisingly okay with it, she doesn't really seem to have much of a reaction. She's just like, oh, that makes sense. And after that, she gives Kyle these drawings and letters and stuff like that his father was writing there towards the end. None of it makes sense to her, but she thinks maybe he can make some sense out of it. Back to Isabel and Noah, they're starting to plan kind of like a little picnic or something because, now he's surprisingly okay with this fact that she's an alien. And anyways, she has a very quick flashback. So this is definitely one of the side effects of the medicine she's on. But she sees this scene where she it's her teenage self, and she's meeting up with Rosa, and Rosa's kind of quick to say, you wouldn't be caught dead hanging out with me, and Isabel just makes some comment about, well, maybe I'm not the same Isabel, and stuff like that. Well, then, you flash back to Isabel in the current state, and this is all new to her. She has no idea that she was ever friends with her, and which we suspected that before when we thought maybe she was a split personality or something, but this is kind of confirming it. Now that she realizes that she had a relationship with Rosa, she just didn't remember it. After leaving Michael's house, Alex ends up at the bar where Maria's there, and this scene was a little odd to me. I don't really know what it was about, to be honest with you. He ends up kind of telling her that the guy that he's been seeing, that Maria does know about in passing, she doesn't know a name, but she knows about someone. But he ends up telling her it's Michael, and Maria, of course, freaks out because of the fact that she slept with Michael in the last episode. And I don't know, this was just a weird scene to me because it was almost like Alex was kind of marking his territory with her. Basically, she starts instantly, saying, I'm sorry, it was a one-time thing. I had no idea that, and, they kind of gloss over it to some point, but I thought this was really kind of predatory or something. I don't know. It was really strange. I didn't like this scene. At the hospital, Isabel and Noah show up to talk to Liz, and Isabel is telling Liz about the side effects of the drug, that she's starting to remember things about Rosa, and I think she's trying to make amends with Liz to some degree, and she does want more of the drug, and Liz kind of turns her down, saying, we don't know what this is going to do to you. We can't just give you more of this. And as they're kind of talking about that, like an alarm goes off, and Liz says, oh, it's just a drill, that there's an active shooter. She's like, it's just a drill, it's fine. And then out of nowhere, they hear a gunshot, and they start to scramble, and Noah ends up getting shot. Kyle gets a hold of Alex after the bar scene, and they're back at Project Shepherd, and he gives him the files, the drawings and the messages that his dad left him, and Alex kind of runs it through a system, and they end up using a keyword, which was Magoo, which was what Kyle's father used to call Kyle, and it ends up kind of decrypting this code, and it says something about, hi Magoo, I love you. And then they find some other words in there. None of it really makes sense to them at the time, but this is such a TV thing. When someone has a dark secret, or someone eventually is going to end up dead, they always leave signs. Rosa did it before, Alex did it in the original Roswell. You've seen it on countless TV shows. I guess it's just a cliche. I don't know. Of course, this is going to lead them somewhere because he left messages. Back at the hospital, Max ends up kind of getting through the door into Liz's lab, and they get everybody to safety. Noah's just been grazed by the bullet, but they do manage to get him out of the building. Outside the hospital, Isabel has another flashback. This time it's of her and Rosa on the roof of the crash down. Rosa's kind of having like this freak out, and Isabel sort of tries to comfort her. She ends up hugging her. It's really awkward, and she kind of pulls back, and she's like, oh, are you not a hugger? And Rosa's like, no, I am. It was just, unexpected, but it felt good. And they have this other hug. It's really weird. Isabel's got the freaky eyes going on, everything. She's definitely not herself. After that flashback, she sees some more scenes, and these are ones we've actually seen before. It was just the scene after the prom in the crash down between Isabel and Rosa, and then the scene where Isabel walks up on Rosa and she sees that someone's written on her car and stuff like that. So we've seen these before, but Isabel has not. Inside the hospital, Max tracks down the shooter. It ends up being this guy. We haven't really seen him before, but they're down in the basement, and he's the guy who was the shooter is freaking out because he doesn't know why he's done this. He's kind of a pacifist. He's never done this before. He ends up being some kind of a barista at a coffee shop. Really no motive to do this, but he doesn't have a clue why he did it. Before Max sees him in there, he raids Liz's office and her lab, and evidently takes the cure that she has left. Isabel is with Michael at his trailer, and she's kind of talking to him about the flashbacks that she's had, and she ends up telling him that in these flashbacks she feels like she was in love with Rosa, that she wanted her, but she doesn't understand these, obviously. And she's, like I said, she says that she wanted to love, or she wanted to protect anyone, or she wanted to protect Rosa, and she wanted to hurt anyone who was a threat to Rosa. And after she says that, Michael really is kind of expressionless, but she says, you don't have a reaction to that, and he's like, welcome to the party. He's like, it's a real bisexual alien blast or something. So I guess judging by that, she knows about Alex. We found out in the previous episode that Max knew, so I guess Isabel does too. But she ends up finding out that Michael has squirreled away some of the antidote, and she ends up taking some of it, and then she's going to go back to Noah and try to find out more. She wants to have more flashbacks. She wants to find out more. Michael goes to the bar after this scene with Isabel, and he shows up there to return the necklace that Maria lost. And there's this really kind of awkward scene between them where she tells him that she knows about him and Alex. She says, he's one of my best friends. And then she's very serious with Michael, and she's like, this can never happen again. And he tells her, you keep telling me that, so I've got it. It's fine. And then she turns around, I guess, and then she tells him to come back some other time. And I don't know, they're both giving each other these looks. They've got to be going somewhere with the storyline, because if not, the hookup between them in the desert would have simply just been a hookup, and I don't think they'd have much follow-up to it. I actually felt really bad for Maria in this episode. I felt like they kept crapping on her character to some degree, and I don't feel like Alex came off very well. And like I said, I sympathize with her, I guess, in this, and they're gonna go somewhere with this, because there's no way this is just a throwaway scene. Back at Liz's lab, she's kind of looking through stuff, and Max shows up, and he tells her kind of what happened, who the person was who was the shooter. Of course, she says, hey, he used to work for us at the crash down. He was epileptic, he had seizures, and she kind of suggests to Max that she doesn't think that Isabel was in control of herself. She thinks Isabel was being, controlled by someone whenever she did whatever she did to Rosa. And she also thinks that, Wyatt Long was being controlled whenever he put her in a box and tried to burn her. And this guy might have been under control as well. She kind of suggests that it's maybe the fourth alien. Of course, we're all kind of thinking the same thing. But she's kind of putting this together. Now, for the final scene of the episode, and this was really the big reveal, you've got Isabel, and she's kind of looking at her hand in the mirror, and she flashes back to the night that Rosa died. And we see Rosa, she's very distraught, she's erratic, she's in the cave where, eventually Michael runs up on them and finds the dead bodies. And she's looking for her backpack that has the ticket in it that she was given, that we've seen in a previous episode. And she looks at Isabel, and she's like, listen, I'm sorry that I don't feel the same way about you that you do about me, but you've got to let me go. And Isabel just kind of looks at her, and she's like, this isn't even me, this isn't even my body. And she's kind of just, Rosa kind of dismisses it. She's like, you're higher than I am right now. And she's like, it's not that. She's like, I can be anybody you want me to be. Isabel even goes so far as to say, you want someone that can protect you, I can be that man. So obviously the entity that is possessing Isabel is male. Rosa freaks out, and she kind of, I think she's trying to play Isabel at this point to kind of get out of this situation. Isabel's like, I killed those girls for you. She's, talking about the other two girls that were killed that night. And Rosa's kind of like, okay, show me. And when she goes to run out of the cave, Isabel grabs her, and then she's hurt. She's like, you don't trust me. You hate me. And, she puts her hand over her mouth, and that's where we get the handprint at. And that's pretty much, she ends up killing her. This is when Michael runs in, and she says what she said in the previous episode we've seen. She couldn't be trusted, and that's sort of where the flashback ends, and Isabel is now realizing all this. So that's where we leave the episode. So overall, like I said, it had its slow moments, but we got a lot of reveals in here. Pretty much everybody now knows that they're aliens, and everyone seems to be fairly okay with it. The stuff with Isabel and the backstory is really interesting to me. Obviously, I kind of think that the fourth alien, if there is a fourth alien, I think this is the person who is taking over Isabel, who's controlling her. Now, why they're doing what they're doing, who knows? Because, in the original series, we thought Naceto was this horrible character. And yes, he was kind of shady. He had his issues. But he ended up being their protector. He wasn't so much against them. So, maybe that's the case here. Maybe this is their version of Naceto. I don't know. It's this show is following its own path at this point, so there's no telling. But I'm very interested to see where it's going. I think we've only got maybe 1 or 2 episodes left in the season. Still no word about a renewal, which is still very annoying. But overall, like I said, really liking where the show's going, and it's really interesting. So I'm going to leave this one here. I will see you guys soon. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave the like and a comment, that kind of stuff. And we'll see you here next time. Have a good one, guys.